Welcome to Unity Comox Valley, a positive path for spiritual living. Thank you for being part of this spiritual community today. Thank you for making it a priority to stay connected with your spiritual community and with your spiritual growth. We'll take time now to open our hearts and our minds and come together in consciousness. Would you join me, please? And so if it's comfortable for you, I invite you to close your eyes or perhaps take a deep breath. A breath that puts us back into this now moment, the only moment we have. And here we are, living, breathing on this beautiful planet, this amazing time. We know that as we come together, one in spirit, one in heart, that we are uplifted, energized, renewed, revitalized. We know that we are part of a greater life force on this planet that is powerful, strong, beautiful, creative. And so we go forward into our week, into our world, with hearts open, minds open, willing to be changed and transformed by the experiences of each other, of the divine expressing through each other. And so for these opportunities in advance, we say thank you and amen. Today is the beginning of a 5-part series. And it's called New Thoughts, 1920 and 2020. Unity is part of the New Thought movement, which emerged at the beginning of the previous century. People were not satisfied with what was being currently offered at their churches, and they sought something different, a different experience, a direct experience of God, of the divine. People were experimenting with healing modalities like magnetism and mesmerism and prayer, meditation. The writings of Emerson and Thoreau, of Mary Baker Eddy and Emily Cady were circulating at this time. These pioneers were promoting a new way of thinking, new thought. There are a number of concepts and ideas that came out of this revolution that 100 years later are being replicated and confirmed by modern science and medicine. So many of these concepts we now take for granted. Everybody knows about body-mind connection, right? We all know that our thoughts and our emotions play a key role in our experiences of our lives. We know that we are spiritual beings, divine in nature. This was not always the case. 100 years ago, these ideas were seen as radical, revolutionary, and even heresy. So we're going to look at 5 aspects of these new thought teachings over the next 5 weeks, and how they are accepted and practiced today, how they've really become interwoven into our modern society. Part 1 is going to be presented by Wendy Carr. Wendy is a longtime friend of mine. She's a licensed Unity teacher. She lives in Ontario and speaks at several of the Unity ministries in that area. We went through licensed Unity teacher school together in the 90s. She is an online teacher. She is the education coordinator for Unity Canada, and she is on the licensed Unity teacher task force. Teaching is her joy, and so is history. So what better place to match up her passions than becoming deeply involved and committed to Unity history. She has spent countless hours at Unity Village in their archives and research department. And so today we are going to hear some of the benefit of her joy and her passion as we listen to her talk. But first we are going to hear the daily word reading from Dee Allard for today, October 25th. And then we're going to sing Love is Drawn to Love.
Hi, I'm Dee, and I'm doing the daily word for October 25th, and the word is listen. The affirmation is in the quiet of my heart, I listen for the voice of spirit. During the course of a busy day, I may hear all kinds of conversations, music, sounds from nature, traffic noise, and even my constant self-talk. Sometimes all that I'm hearing may numb me to the more intentional act of listening. As I listen, I become aware of the voice of spirit. Its comforting, guiding presence feels like a homecoming. As I settle into a tranquil environment and begin to relax my body and my mind, I create a welcoming space for listening to the assuring voice of spirit, discernible as my inner knowing. I breathe deeply and I rest in this place. I go about my day listening attentively for the voice of spirit expressing through all the people in my life. Blessed rather are those who hear the word of God and obey it. Luke 11:28. In the quiet of my heart, I listen for the voice of spirit.
Make me some room close by your side. Love is drawn to love. Here in this place, hearts open wide. Love is drawn to love. We'll find our song, sing it together. Love is drawn to love. With harmony, everything's better. Love is drawn to love. Love is drawn to love. Love is drawn to love. Love, love, oh, love is drawn to love. Love is drawn to love. Love is drawn to love. Love, love, oh, love is drawn to love. Stand up for truth, lift up your voices. Love is drawn to love. Follow your heart, you'll see the choices. Love is drawn to love. Love is drawn to love. Love is drawn to love. Love, love, oh, love is drawn to love. Love is drawn to love. Love is drawn to love. Love, love, oh, love is drawn to love. Love, love, oh, love is drawn to love. Love is drawn to love. Love is drawn to love.
Welcome to Feeding the Body in Unity, one of an ongoing series of historical talks about the Unity movement. It was inspired not only by Canadian Thanksgiving, but by the October 2020 theme, Nature's Beauty Reflects My Own True Nature. Let's go back in time, get a little basic foundation. So on the far left is the Unity Inn. Then there's sort of a cloudy spot, and then there's the church and the library. That's the only building left, is the church and the library. It's now the home of Unity Church Universal. But this is how the Unity headquarters looked in the 1920s. As you could probably guess, being between 9th Street and 10th Street, it was fairly close to the downtown core. This allowed for things to be done that pulled in the community in ways that perhaps they hadn't expected initially. I've been very blessed over the years to have had access to archival material, and I will give a quick shout out to the Unity Village Archives for not only allowing me still shots, but allowing me to take a copy of the 1926 movie that Charles Fillmore, our co-founder, had produced. I invite you to look for it on YouTube. It's a great view of how things were in Unity in the 1920s. As you can see, there's a large bus in front of the Unity Inn. This was because they used it to go and pick up office workers in the downtown core at lunchtime. So you can imagine that they would have had a variety of people coming in and choosing to share their lunch there. One of the things that I think Charles Fillmore might have struggled with, and I use that word with some caution, but there's clear in his writings and in talk notes that there was a part of him that kind of struggled between the spiritual and the human self, and that he was very much aware of his humanity. In 1925, he published a booklet called Flesh Eating Metaphysically Considered. And he writes, in eating the flesh of animals, we are feeding and stimulating the animal mentality that pervades our bodies. Instead of transforming the flesh consciousness into spirit, we are adding to its power to bind us to the plane of sensation. And that's pretty heavy stuff, but that really reflects what he believed, that everything was part of your spiritual self. So the very food that you put into your mouth wasn't around the nutrients that you were receiving. It was a question of, were you binding yourself further to the world of sense consciousness, or were you allowing it just to keep the vessel healthy while you worked on the spiritual part of your life? Here are two more screenshots from the movie. In 1923, I found an advertisement which writes, the Unity Vegetarian Inn is located on Tracy Avenue at 9th Street, Kansas City, Missouri. The inn is open to the public. Everybody is cordially invited to test the vegetarian diet. This cannot be done by a single meal. You must give the vegetarian diet a fair test, abstaining from flesh eating for a reasonable period before passing upon its merits. The service is cafeteria style. Walk right in, pick up a tray, and step to the steam table where the food is displayed. And at the time, they claimed to be the largest vegetarian cafeteria in the world. I won't fact check that. I don't think I'm capable of doing that. But it certainly was a part of the Unity community. These are some postcards that you could purchase, send to your friends, get them to meet you at the inn for lunch. So on the bluish one is of the soda fountain, and in the video we actually have two children each eating a sundae, and a lady comes by with a helium balloon and ties one to the back of each child's chair, and then we have the main seating area for the rest of the cafeteria. I was struck by how much it reminded me of the Silent Unity Chapel at Unity Village. If you haven't been there, take a look online. There are plenty of pictures, but just the detail with which the area was made to look as pleasant as possible. As I alluded to earlier, there were buses that they had. At one point, they had a Rolls Royce. Not sure how they got that or how long it lasted. But it certainly was a place to come. And you didn't have to be an adherent of Unity or Unity's teachings to come. It was a separate thing. They were very clear that the profits from the cafeteria were supporting the ministry work. But certainly there was very little to stop you from participating. In fact, it's written that on December 31st of 1914, when they were preparing to dedicate the big administrative office building, they had the kitchen had been working very hard, and they had enough food for a few hundred people who were coming, because the building would be dedicated at the stroke of midnight. Now, one of the stories that comes out of the inn I find really interesting, because it's one of those, you could do a sci-fi story of what if. So what if this gentleman, some of you may recognize him, if you don't, you might recognize his poetry. What if James Dillett Freeman had never been brought to Unity Inn as a child? So when he was about 10, his parents divorced. His mother connected with the man who would become his stepfather. And his stepfather was unwell, and somebody had sent him a diet that was strictly oranges, all 3 meals. James later wrote that he thought that perhaps his father had been the one to send that diet to his stepfather just as some revenge. But eventually he was told to perhaps go to this Unity Inn and see if that would help his condition. So with James in tow, would have been about 12, 13 at the time, suddenly James found himself with his gregarious stepfather, who he writes, I'm sure he was only in Unity Inn once and he knew everybody there. Twice, and we were all attending Unity Sunday services, and eventually they were attending the evening classes at Unity as well. So for the want of a vegetarian diet, young James Dillett Freeman started coming to Unity, started learning the teachings. It's said that Myrtle took him under her wing and guided him. There are many stories. He's a whole other Sunday talk unto himself. When he finished his education, he started working at Silent Unity as one of the letter writers. He moved into writing poetry and articles. At that point, they were very aware of the importance of everyone being equal and there not being identity complexes. And so most of his early works are just written under the name of Silent Unity, as were all of the authors at the time. After World War II, when the GI Bill was established in the States, it was decided that he would be the dean of the new ministerial school for the returning soldiers. And so he taught, and people say that, you know, they basically got what he understood about the Unity teachings, having known both Charles and Myrtle and Charles's second wife, Cora. So he was very well versed in our teachings, having learned them literally at the feet of the co-founders. So would he have found Unity? I don't know. I just know that my bookshelf would be considerably barer, and that our understanding of the history would be a bit less. He wrote initially a book called Household of Faith. You can see it on the right there. It was later revised and retitled The Story of Unity, and it's become one of the core textbooks for many people in the Unity movement. He wrote a lot of poetry, a lot of poetry. Actually, most of these books are poems. Love is Strong as Death is a wonderful piece that he wrote in tribute to his first wife. And I give a shout out to Catherine, not only for being with him, but it was her illness that inspired him to write I Am There. And that's probably his second most famous poem behind the Prayer for Protection. Both of those have gone to the moon. Unfortunately, in January of 2018, there was a fire. You can see that I stole this from Google Earth, and I found it interesting. When you get to street level, the building is gone. You can just see sort of the footprint of where it was. But this is clearly a little bit afterwards. I'm a couple feet up in the Google thing, and I stopped, and there was the building as it was. So it was torn down. It wasn't owned by Unity at the time, but certainly for we historical types, it was a passing of a time. So let me introduce to you, if you haven't already met them, to the Fillmore family. In the center, we have Charles. On the left, we have Myrtle. On the right, we have Grandma Fillmore, Charles's mother, Mary. In the back row, left to right, we have Lowell, Rickard, and Royal. I find it really interesting how all of their individual spiritual paths eventually had some tie into something very physical. So Myrtle was very keen on taking care of the children. It was from her that we had Wee Wisdom's Way, which was a children's magazine that I actually read in my public library growing up, not knowing how it would connect me to my spiritual path later. Her youngest son, Royal, was very involved in that. Charles, as we know, was the primary minister of the Unity movement in the early days and the primary writer. Grandma Fillmore took care of everything else. She was very much into the cooking, the cleaning, taking care of the boys. So we always bless Grandma Fillmore for her gift to the movement. Lowell took on the administrative work when his father was ready to retire. Rickard was the genius that designed the grounds that we now have at Unity Village. But it was Royal, without whom we would not have Unity Village. In the 19 teens, one of the things that we see in North America is a movement towards what was called fresh air, getting kids out into the county. And it was thanks to that that in 1919, Unity bought its first 58 acres. Now, being good stewards of resources, they were able to purchase land that already had orchards in place, that had buildings that could be immediately used, and that over time they could adjust, tear down what they didn't need, build what they needed to specification. By 1941, they had 1,300 acres. By 2020, it's down to 1,200 acres, but the land is now encompassed by interstate highways, so I'm sure that accounts for that missing 100 acres. Again, this is some footage from the movie, some still shots. They had a blending of animals doing the work and steam-driven motors doing the work. It was a really interesting time to be farming. They had 6,000 chickens by 1928. And if you have never seen this before, this is one of the weirdest things I think I've ever seen. And it is a set of red glasses to keep the chickens from pecking at each other if they have injured themselves and drawn blood. And I questioned that, but I talked to my dad who grew up in the county, and he said, yeah, he had seen times they didn't use that particular item, but he had seen chickens peck each other to death once one was injured. So it was an investment to have this kind of thing, however horrific it may look to us, to keep the chickens from killing each other. And we're told that they had, in 1928, paid $500 for a rooster, and that their strain of leghorns were in high demand, selling for $1 a bird in 1928. The hen house was torn down sometime after 1957, and they haven't gone back to chickens, so I guess we won't be seeing these anytime soon. In my collection of Unity paraphernalia, I have this booklet on the eating and exercising habits for students in the Unity Training School. They had 200 acres of orchards at that point with apples, peaches, plums, cherries, and one assumes grapes because they advertised the grape juice and apple cider is available for purchase. They had 5 different kinds of berries: strawberries, red raspberries, blackberries, and young berries. They had their own mill, which they advertised would grind grain daily with wheat, corn, and other cereals. I might suggest perhaps oats, because they talked about breakfast cereals. And they had canned products, jams and jellies and sauces, which was, they said, was available at the Campanile or the Tower and the Unity Inn. And they also had dairy products, which were only available at the Tower and the farm itself. The terrace tea room at Unity Farm served eggs, milk, cheese, fish, and beans, but no meat, not unlike the inn. So this is the base of the tower. You can see Unity Farm products, and we have a variety of jars, and then we had a bookstore. So not unlike the bookstore at Unity Village now, with some of the products that they've got present. Eventually, they had a road stand. I understand that these 2 pictures are located where there's now an interstate. But in my time, as I was going through school at Unity Village, I had opportunity. I met a couple of people who had met their future spouse at the fruit stand, not in class, but at the fruit stand. So one assumes that, in a much more relaxed atmosphere, that things like that would happen. But apparently, it was quite a place to be. That it was known for having quality produce. It was also known for having produce when other areas experienced droughts. What I found really interesting about this was every time they tried to drill for water, knowing that they had all these crops to take care of, they found gas and oil. So eventually they ended up damming a creek. I understand that they've just redone the dam to ensure that the lake is still in good shape and that they've got the water. So it was very much good stewardship of not only natural resources, but of funds that they had received, and the blessings that the produce produced and provided for them. For a while, the farm lay kind of dormant. The focus was on ministry. At one point, There was some discussion whether or not they would expand the Montessori school that they had on grounds to the point that children could start in preschool and go through Unity and be credentialed in a bachelor's degree. That kind of fell by the wayside when the decision was made to focus more on the spiritual path and not worry so much about math and geography and history and things like that. But it has resumed. And I noticed that one of my visits that there was some fresh produce in the corner of the bookstore, and they called themselves the Garden at Unity Village. As you can see on the screen, our mission is to be an expression of abundance, spiritual connection, and stewardship, and be a community of people committed to growing healthy food and sustaining a prosperous green model for generations to come. Our vision is to recultivate the legacy of the Fillmores, the founders of the Unity Church ecological footprint at Unity Village. So that was the farm, which became Unity Village. And I just found it so interesting how food has kind of come and gone through the history. After Myrtle passed, 2 years later, Charles remarried. And his second wife, Cora, actually kept goats on their property to ensure that he would have fresh goat's milk, which she believed was vital to his longevity. So it's a balance for all of us. The idea of the food that we eat, where has it come from? What does it feed us? And so many other questions that we can ask. So I hope that I've given you a little taste of, pun intended, of what the history has been of that experience of balancing human and spiritual. I thank you for joining me.
Do you know how amazing you are? What a gift you bring to the world. You are light, you are love, you were sent from above. Do you know how amazing you are? Do you know the truth of who you are? Do you know you are a child of God? You are pure, you are whole, you are an innocent soul. Do you know who you are? You were sent to do great and marvelous things. You are made of stardust and carried on angels' wings, blessed with the kingdom of heaven on earth. How can you not know your worth? Do you know how much love surrounds you? If you could see, you would never be afraid. No matter what stone appears in your path, you are carried along the way. You were sent to do great and marvelous things. You are made of stardust and carried on angels' wings, blessed with the kingdom of heaven on earth. How can you not know your worth? Do you know how amazing you are? What a gift you are to the world. You are light, you are love, you are sent from above. Do you know how amazing you are?
Now I invite you to join me in a time of prayer and meditation, allowing my voice to be your voice, my words to be your words. Acknowledging that there is divine wisdom on whatever you're sitting in or on, and that you can allow your body to relax a little bit, for you will be supported. And finally, breathing in, going into that space within your body where you feel that oneness, where you feel your own divinity, where you feel the connection of all, and just breathing into that space. And having heard about the inn and the farm, we pause and give thanks for all those who have gone before us. Not only our co-founders and the teachers, but the workers in silent unity, the workers in the kitchens, those who toiled in the field, those who have held sacred space for all. We give thanks for the technology that allows us not only to move forward, but to remain connected in this time of pandemic. That allows us to share our thoughts and our understandings. And gratitude for all those who support the lives we live right now. All those who are frontline workers. All those who do things behind the scenes that keep us safe, that keep our stores stocked, that keeps the electricity and water running, that allow us to continue our journey. And in this time of gratitude, we bring to mind all those who we're holding on our hearts in prayer. All names in prayer boxes everywhere, prayer lists. Knowing that in this oneness, answers can be found. Comfort is provided. New understandings are created. Awareness and opportunities are revealed. And we take these names into the silence. And as we continue in this attitude of gratitude, we bring to mind anything for which we would like to express special thanks. We hold the world in light and love, knowing that regardless of outer human appearances seen by human eyes and heard by human ears, that the divinity of all is a capital T truth, that we truly are one at some level. And that as we hold to this vision of oneness, that peace and prosperity and comfort and love and wisdom will govern all. We give thanks for this awareness, for this opportunity to come together, for this opportunity to rest in the stillness and allow the human outer to just be. And for this time together, for the technology that brings us together. We are so grateful. And so it is, and so it shall be. Amen.
Thank you, Dee, for the reading. Thank you, Wendy, for this trip through Unity history. And thank you, Joseph, for providing the artwork and the video clips and really the entire production of these celebration services. I'd like to reserve this space in case you have a message that you would like me to pass on to others. And this week I did receive something from Diane Jung that was sent to her, and I thought I would pass this on to you as well. It is said that His Holiness the Dalai Lama recites this prayer every morning as part of his waking rituals. And it's the Bodhisattva prayer for humanity. May I be a guard for those who need protection, a guide for those on the path, a boat, a raft, a bridge for those who wish to cross the flood. May I be a lamp in the darkness, a resting place for the weary, a healing medicine for all who are sick, a vase of plenty, a tree of miracles. And for the boundless multitudes of living beings, may I bring sustenance and awakening, enduring like the earth and sky, until all beings are freed from sorrow and all are awakened. Thank you, Diane, for passing that on to me and to us. I know we all have special people in our lives who encourage us and bless us. So let's take a moment to bring someone to mind right now, someone who has supported you, who has helped you, has given you perhaps a good laugh when you needed it, and lent you an ear. And as we do this, we know that this puts us fully into the flow of receiving and giving. We know that these people have been a blessing to us, and we know that we have been a blessing to others. Do you know how amazing you are? And so with joy in your hearts and minds, would you join me in our affirmation? Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And so it is. Just a reminder that a report from our Zoom community circle went out in the newsletter last week. So if you are not on our newsletter mailing list, you might want to do that so you can stay in touch and up to date with what's going on at Unity Comox Valley. You can do that by sending us an email. So until next week, namaste. Here are some of the ways you can stay connected with your spiritual community. You can send a thought of the day. You can read the daily word. You can make a song request. If you don't know the title, just send a phrase or a couple of words and we'll find it for you. You can sign up for our weekly newsletter, which includes updates from Unity Comox Valley and also resources from all around the Unity movement. Email us at info@unitycomoxvalley.com. Write to me, to the board. We want to hear from you.
Peace in my life is growing because I choose love. Love's always present, it's what I'm made of. I choose love. We are a part of each other. We are one tie that binds us, that can't be undone. I choose love. Peace in my family is growing because I choose love. Let love be present, it's what we're made